All right, horror fans, grab your chainsaws and buckle up. Today, we're slicing into the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the 2003 remake that took everything gruesome from the original and cranked it to 11. It's slicker, bloodier, and filled with secrets you probably never noticed, from using real animal bones on set, filming in chilling and eerie locations, and actors doing their own death-defying stunts. Here are 20 weird and disturbing facts about the film that brought Leatherface back from the dead. Fact 1. Jessica Biel wore a wig the whole time. One of the most iconic images that sticks in your mind is Jessica Biel running through the woods, covered in blood and sweat, her long brown hair clinging to her face as Leatherface roars behind her. That visual became so synonymous with the film that it was used in nearly every piece of marketing. The poster, the DVD cover, the trailers. But here's the twist. That hair, totally fake. Jessica Biel was actually wearing a wig through most of the movie.
Take it easy.
God, thank God. My friend needing help. My friend right now, my friend.
Fact 2. They used real dead animals on set. When you're watching the film, you can practically smell the decay. The Sawyer house, or the Hewitt house in this version, is filled with bones, feathers, blood, and filth. And that's no accident. The art department wasn't just trying to make the place look disgusting, they wanted it to feel disgusting. And to do that, they didn't rely on CGI or plastic Halloween props. They went full method. They used real dead animals. Yes, you heard that right. Real bones, real hides, real carcasses, brought in from nearby farms, slaughterhouses, and in some cases, roadside finds. The logic was simple. If the audience was going to believe Leatherface lived in a place of death, the house itself had to reek of it. The set decorators scoured local rural areas in Texas looking for cattle skulls, goat bones, chicken feathers, anything organic that could be nailed to walls or strung from ceilings. They even found old roadkill that was still somewhat intact and cleaned it up just enough to use in the background. You know those scenes where Aaron walks through rooms filled with dangling bones and dried hides? That wasn't foam rubber, that was real stuff. Fact 3. The meat locker was a real slaughterhouse. Sometimes in horror, the set is just as important as the story. That's definitely the case when it comes to the infamous meat locker scene. It's one of the most disturbing environments in the film. Metal hooks dangling from the ceiling, stained white tiles, blood on the floor, and a claustrophobic sense of rot. You'd think it was an elaborate Hollywood set built on a soundstage. But nope, it was an actual slaughterhouse. Real walls, real blood, real smell. The production team found an abandoned meatpacking facility in East Texas that had been shut down for years. The place had all the original features: meat hooks, industrial equipment, rusted machinery, and those awful metal doors that slam shut like something out of a nightmare. The location was already falling apart, and it was perfect. In fact, the art department barely had to touch it. They added a few splashes of fake blood, some atmospheric lighting, and it was ready to go. What's more, the acoustics of the space added a layer of realism you don't normally get. Every footstep echoed, every metal clang rang out. It felt alive, like the building itself was groaning under the weight of its violent past, and the camera loved it. Those scenes have a documentary-style dread that you just can't fake, because they weren't faking it. They were standing in a place built for death. Fact 4. Eric Balfour was the first to die and the first to leave set. Eric Balfour's character, Kemper, is the first to die. It's quick, brutal, and terrifying. One of those perfect horror movie moments where everything turns on a dime. 1 second he's wandering through a creepy house, the next, boom! Leatherface slams a metal door shut behind him, dragging his twitching body away. His scenes were all filmed in the first week of production. The filmmakers knew that Leatherface's first kill needed to hit hard, and they wanted to get it in the can early while the energy was high. That heavy metal door, it was real and it was dangerous. Balfour said in interviews that it slammed so hard he worried it would crush his fingers during takes. The crew had to be extremely careful. The door weighed hundreds of pounds. Fans still talk about that first death, how sudden and mechanical it is, how it sets the tone for the rest of the movie. And in a way, it mirrors the structure of a good horror film.
Where is he?
I don't know.
The first kill isn't just about losing a character, it's about telling the audience that no one is safe. Balfour's exit set the stage for everything that came next. And even though his time on set was short, his death became one of the remake's most iconic moments. Sometimes dying early is the best way to become unforgettable. Fact 5. R. Lee Ermey improvised almost everything.
My money says your dead body's right there in that van.
If there's one performance in Texas Chainsaw 2003 that truly rattles you to your core, it's R. Lee Ermey as Sheriff Hoyt. He's not just a sadistic cop, he's a psychological predator, a wolf in uniform, and one of the most terrifying parts of the entire film. But here's the kicker. Almost everything he says on screen, totally improvised.
Now we're getting someplace. Who's killing who?
That's right. Many of Ermey's most chilling lines weren't written by the screenwriters. They came straight from his twisted imagination. Take the infamous trunk scene, for example, when Hoyt forces Morgan to reenact the suicide
Take the gun.
with a revolver in his mouth. That scene was almost entirely made up on the spot.
Show me how she did it.
Ermey ramped up the tension with every line, adding pauses, threats, and twisted humor. The actors had no idea what he was going to say next, and that made their reactions real. Jonathan Tucker, who played Morgan, said he was genuinely sweating bullets during that take because Ermey's intensity was off the charts. Fact 6. The iconic white tank top was a strategic move. When people think about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, one image stands out more than any chainsaw or creepy farmhouse. Jessica Biel in that dirty white tank top, soaked in blood, running for her life through the woods. It's become one of the most enduring visuals in modern horror. But what most people don't realize is just how carefully that look was planned. This wasn't an accident or a random costume choice. It was a strategic move rooted in both horror history and marketing psychology. Let's start with the horror connection. The tank top is a clear callback to Marilyn Burns from the original 1974 film. In that movie, Burns' character Sally spends the entire third act covered in blood, her white clothes clinging to her in panic. It became a kind of uniform, the final girl aesthetic. So for the 2003 remake, the costume department wanted to pay homage to that visual while modernizing it. Fact 7. Leatherface was played by a 300-pound powerlifter. Leatherface has always been a force of nature, but in the 2003 remake, he became a bulldozer. That's thanks to Andrew Bryniarski, the actor who stepped into the iconic role. But Bryniarski didn't just wear a mask and swing a chainsaw, he physically transformed himself to become a walking nightmare, and he didn't hold back. Before shooting began, Bryniarski was already a big guy, but he wanted Leatherface to be something more than just scary. He wanted him to be overwhelming. So he hit the gym hard. He trained with powerlifters, ate like a beast, and packed on 40 pounds of solid muscle. By the time filming started, he weighed over 300 pounds, with the strength to literally toss people around like rag dolls. Which he does, repeatedly. And it wasn't just about size, it was about how he moved. Bryniarski studied animal behavior to bring a kind of unthinking brutality to Leatherface. His movements are sudden, jerky, almost primal, like a bear that doesn't know its own strength. The crew even joked that he wasn't acting, he was just being Leatherface. And to make things more intense, he did most of his own stunts. That's really him swinging the chainsaw. That's really him sprinting at full speed in the slaughterhouse. That's really him crashing through doors and grabbing people by the throat. Fact 8. The chainsaw was 100% real and 100% dangerous. The decision to use a real chainsaw came straight from director Marcus Nispel and actor Andrew Bryniarski. They believed that horror should feel real. And nothing sells danger like actual danger. So they brought in stunt coordinators, safety experts, and chainsaw wranglers to manage the weapon during filming. Bryniarski, who played Leatherface, had to train extensively just to carry and operate the saw safely. He practiced for hours to get the swing, weight, and balance right, because if he lost control, someone could die. And there were close calls. During one scene in the slaughterhouse, the chainsaw got caught on a metal doorframe and kicked back violently. Bryniarski nearly lost control, and the crew immediately shut down filming. They made adjustments, tighter grip, reinforced gloves, safety clearances, but they didn't switch to a prop. They kept using the real thing. That's how committed they were to authenticity. Jessica Biel, who played Erin, said she was legitimately terrified during the chase scenes. In one take, she slipped while running barefoot across a wet floor with Leatherface barreling behind her, chainsaw roaring. She scrambled to her feet, heart pounding, not knowing if she was still in character or genuinely running for her life. And that's exactly the energy the filmmakers wanted. Not fake fear, not rehearsed panic, real adrenaline. Fact 9. A crew member almost lost a finger. While adjusting a heavy lighting rig above one of the slaughterhouse locations, the rig slipped and part of it came crashing down onto someone's hand. The crew member's finger was crushed between two metal components and partially severed. There was panic on set. Someone screamed for a medic. Production shut down immediately as the injured person was rushed off-site for emergency treatment. The whole ordeal was so gruesome that a few people thought it was a planned special effects gag. It wasn't. It was a genuine accident, one that left people shaken. Ironically, the moment inspired a later prop gag in the film. In a scene where one of the characters is mutilated in the basement, the prosthetics team used the idea of a mangled finger, twisting and tearing it in a way that mirrored the real injury. Art imitating life in the most messed up way possible. Fact 10. The crime scene footage was so real, people called the police. The opening doesn't feel like a movie, it feels like a crime documentary. Grainy footage, old-school narration, shaky camera work, and a creepy crawl through a basement crime scene. It's meant to feel real. Too real. And for some viewers, it was. After the film was released, local police departments in Texas actually received calls from confused, and sometimes horrified, people asking about the real case shown in the movie. Some even asked where to find the original reports or crime photos. That's how convincing the opening was. The footage was a deliberate stylistic choice by director Marcus Nispel. He wanted to blur the line between fiction and reality right from the first frame. The entire sequence was shot with vintage lenses, real police gear, and minimal lighting. They even brought in real ex-cops to consult on body positioning, autopsy bag placement, and how investigators would move through a crime scene. Every movement was choreographed to mimic true crime specials that were popular on TV at the time. Fact 11. The narrator was paid in weed for the original. But not this time.
Crimes in the annals of American history. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
In the world of horror movie trivia, few facts are as legendary or as weird as this one. John Larroquette, the man whose chilling voice opens the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in both 1974 and 2003, was originally paid in marijuana for his work. That's right, no cash, no contract, just a joint. Larroquette was a young, unknown actor at the time, doing voiceover work on the side, and the producers of the original film were operating on a shoestring budget. Legend has it, Tobe Hooper handed him a blunt, said, "Read this, and the rest is history." Fast forward nearly 30 years later to the remake, and the filmmakers had a decision to make. Do they get a new narrator, or do they bring back the voice that started it all? Thankfully, they went for the second option. Larroquette was now a household name, thanks to TV roles, movies, and a booming voiceover career. And this time, he got a proper paycheck. But what didn't change? The tone, the vibe, the way he delivered that haunting
The
narration.
film which you are about to see is an account of the tragedy which befell a group of 5 youths.
Fact 12. One scene was shot in a real abandoned mental hospital. The basement scene was filmed inside a real abandoned psychiatric hospital just outside Austin, Texas. The hospital had been shuttered for decades. The walls were cracked, the lights flickered from water damage, and the air felt heavy. The production team could have just built a replica, but they wanted authenticity, and they found it in this decaying shell of a building. The moment they stepped inside, they knew they had struck horror gold. The peeling paint, the narrow corridors, the sense that time had just stopped. It was all there, waiting to be captured. Fact 13. Leatherface's mask was made from the actor's own face. There's something deeply unsettling about Leatherface's mask in the 2003 remake. It doesn't look like a Halloween mask. It looks like something peeled off a person and stitched together in a rush. But here's the creepiest part. The mask Leatherface wears, it's based on the actor's own face. Yep. The makeup team started by making a life cast of Andrew Briniarski, the man behind the monster. And then they sculpted a version of that same face as if it had been skinned and reassembled by a lunatic, and as if that wasn't creepy enough, the original mask didn't even last. The Texas heat, sweat, and constant physical stunts made it deteriorate halfway through filming. Rather than remake it, the effects team took a page from Leatherface's book. They stitched it back together. They literally repaired it using fishing wire, staples, and latex seams, turning the damage into a feature, not a bug. By the end of filming, the mask looked more decayed, more horrifying, and more real than any sculpted creation could have been. It evolved, just like the character. Fact 14. Jessica Biel threw up after a crawlspace scene. Filming a horror movie is usually messy, but sometimes it's nauseating. Literally. Just ask Jessica Biel, who went all in for her role as Erin. One of the film's most intense scenes involves Biel crawling through a tight, muddy, blood-soaked tunnel under the Hewitt house. It's dark, claustrophobic, and filled with grime. What the audience didn't know is that Biel was so revolted by the conditions, she actually threw up after filming the scene. The crawl space was designed to look like a combination of an animal den and a butcher's crawl tunnel. filled with bones, hair, fake intestines, and what the crew called meat sludge. The props team used everything from rotting vegetables to discarded pig parts to create the gunk. Add in fake blood, sawdust, and glycerin, and the effect was truly gag-worthy. The smell alone was enough to make several people leave the set. Fact 15. Michael Bay wanted explosions in a horror movie. When you think of Michael Bay, you think of Transformers, Bad Boys, and buildings exploding in slow motion. What you probably don't think of is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but Bay produced the 2003 remake, and his fingerprints are all over it. One of the most surprising ways he influenced the movie, he wanted explosions. That's right, the king of action cinema brought a little pyrotechnic flair to a horror film about a guy with a chainsaw. Now, Bay didn't direct the movie. Marcus Nispel did. But as producer, Bay had major creative influence. And when the team was planning the film's third act, Bay reportedly pushed for a fiery finale. He felt the story needed more punch, more adrenaline. So they added a dramatic car crash and a gas station sequence that ends with flames roaring in the background. It's one of the most explosive moments in the film. Literally. Fact 16. Leatherface's teeth were modeled after infected pigs. The prosthetic team didn't sculpt a random set of nasty teeth. They modeled them after real infected pig jaws. That's right, the basis for Leatherface's haunting, crooked, decaying grin came straight from veterinary photos of diseased pigs with shattered tusks, abscesses, and tooth rot. Andrew Briniarski had to wear the custom mouthpiece for long stretches during filming. It made it hard to talk, harder to breathe, and even affected his growling. And that was the point. The teeth distorted his speech, turned his breath into a wheeze, and made his already monstrous presence feel even more alien. Every time he opened his mouth to grunt, scream, or roar, the audience saw a mouth full of cruelty and neglect. And this wasn't just a one-off gag. The prosthetic teeth had to match across multiple masks and different scenes, so the FX team made several variations, all of them just as disgusting. They even dirtied them up daily using coffee grounds, tobacco juice, and paint mixed with petroleum jelly to give the illusion of wet rot. Fact 17. Injuries were so common, they had a medical tent. You'd expect a movie like Texas Chainsaw Massacre to rack up injuries in the story, but what you might not expect is how many happened behind the scenes. Between the brutal Texas heat, the high-intensity stunts, and the razor-sharp practical sets, the 2003 production became so accident-prone that the crew had to set up a dedicated medical tent on location. Not just a first aid kit, a full field unit staffed by medics on standby throughout filming. Why? Because things were getting serious. Crew members were passing out from dehydration. Actors were bruised, scraped, and sometimes bleeding from stunt mishaps. Jessica Biel bruised her ribs doing her own stunts, and a camera operator was temporarily blinded when a blood pack exploded in his face. One lighting tech sliced open their hand on a rusty pipe while adjusting rigging in the basement set. And these weren't isolated incidents. They happened daily. The medical tent became infamous among the cast and crew. Some even nicknamed it the morgue, joking that it was the real Leatherface hideout. At one point, 5 people needed treatment before lunch, just from routine filming. Blisters, heat rash, twisted ankles, and allergic reactions to fake dirt were all common complaints. And yet, the team pressed on. Fact 18. They used real cow skulls found on the side of the road. When the art department for Texas Chainsaw Massacre set out to build Leatherface's lair, they weren't interested in plastic props or styrofoam bones. They wanted something real, something that made your skin crawl. So they turned to the back roads of rural Texas and started collecting actual animal remains. That's right, the bones and skulls you see decorating the Hewitt house, many of them were real cow and deer skulls, gathered from roadside carcasses and local farms. Of course, using actual remains came with problems. The smell was one. Even clean bones still have residual oils, and when heated under set lights or left outside, they release a musky, organic stench. Crew members reported gagging during set dress rehearsals. Some had to wear masks while filming inside the house, and there were health concerns too. Bones can carry bacteria, especially if not properly sanitized, so the team had to treat each piece before use, often with bleach baths or fire treatments, and it adds another layer to the film's commitment to realism. This wasn't a Hollywood horror movie pretending to be gritty. This was a production that went out into the real world and brought the horror back with them. Fact 19. Jessica Biel did her own stunts, even the chainsaw chase. In most horror movies, the final girl spends the third act running from danger, not diving headfirst into it, but Jessica Biel flipped the script. Not only did she carry the entire film as the lead, she also did her own stunts, and not just a few safe ones. One of the most intense scenes in the film is the infamous chainsaw chase. Biel is sprinting full speed through a dilapidated factory, barefoot, while Leatherface charges behind her, wielding a fully operational chainsaw. The floor was wet and littered with debris, adding to the danger. In one take, Biel actually slipped and fell, narrowly missing a chunk of rusted metal. Instead of cutting, the director kept the camera rolling, and that fall made it into the final edit. The producers were nervous, but Biel shook it off and kept filming. That moment of chaos added even more authenticity to the scene. You could see the fear in her eyes, because it was real. Fact 20. R. Lee Ermey stayed in character and terrified everyone. R. Lee. Ermey was a terrifying man, on screen and off. As Sheriff Hoyt, the twisted authority figure in Texas Chainsaw 2003, Ermey doesn't use a chainsaw, a mask, or a butcher's apron. He doesn't have to. All he needs is a badge, a trucker hat, and a twisted smile to scare the hell out of you. But here's the thing. His performance was so chilling because he never turned it off. Ermey stayed in character all the time. His most disturbing scenes, like the one where he torments Morgan in the backseat of the sheriff's car, were almost entirely unscripted. He riffed, he ad-libbed, he prowled around like a predator, throwing off everyone's rhythm and pushing them to respond in the moment. What you're watching isn't a performance. It's a psychological ambush.
Lucky Mama, she likes me.
And that's a wrap on 20 weird, grisly, and downright disturbing facts about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 2003. From real bones to method madness, this remake didn't just revive Leatherface, it redefined horror for the 2000s. If you love cult horror breakdowns, make sure to like, subscribe, and smash that bell. We've got more blood-soaked secrets coming your way. Until then, stay out of Texas.